Hi everybody, welcome back to Capricorn Radio and welcome to the Capricorn TV live stream today. And I'm super excited as always to be doing my Capricorn TV shows. I got my lovely co-host Heather on the call. Hi Heather, great to be back again.
Hi James, it's great to be here. I'm excited about today's show.
Oh, me too. And I actually spoke to today's guest before. We kind of almost connected in London. We were going to do a one-to-one interview and it just didn't happen. It was so tight on a schedule and it was a shame. But we are on a live Skype call with Fernando Vossa today. And before I bring on today's guest, just a little bio. I won't go crazy. Always great to get it from the guest. He's a free energy researcher, Fernando Vossa, consciousness scientist, a whole body healing technologies is his research. Also involved in ancient wisdom and technology, which I'm really super excited to get into. He's also an artist, and we've got a lovely background, as you can see from our today's guest we're going to talk about first of all. But he also incorporates a series of accelerated learning protocols, DNA activation, and whole body immersion technologies for kids of all ages to learn universal concepts of free energy, peace for humanity, human potential, healing, infinite creativity, and personal empowerment tools to transform our planet with love and compassion. So if that wasn't the biggest entrance for a show, what would be? Without further ado, let's bring on today's guests. Hi, Fernando. You're very, very welcome to the show.
We are living in the age of awakening. Heather, James, thank you for having me here on Capricorn Radio. And we're going to have a breakthrough show today because we're going to bring out some subjects and some tools that I think are going to be amazing for the audience so they can get some traction right this moment when all of this intense change that is happening around the world and all of the things that are looming, the energy of September, which has a mix of high probability for release of funds globally for humanitarian projects. We have the opportunity for mass disclosure, seeing some UFOs in the sky around the world, and we have an opportunity for the consciousness of the planet to wake up a little bit more. What do you think? Are we ready for that?
I'm ready for that, brother.
Definitely.
Fernando, I mean, before I get into anything, I want to talk about your background. It's got to be the nicest background I've had. You're an artist. This is your own picture behind you here. Tell us a little bit the artistic side of you. It's inherent in what I see in your research. The creativity element is there. It's an important part of you. But tell us about the artistry.
Back in 2012, 2013, I did a residency in San Diego with a muralist. His name is Mario Torero, who was from the 60s and the 70s in the movement with Cesar Chavez and the fight for liberating the entire Mexican Chicano power. And living inside a museum, his house is a museum, I hung out with artists and painters and so forth. And I did a series of meditations and downloads to tunnel into my Akashic records of my ancestry and pull out the know-how how to paint. And within days, I was able to pick up a brush and start experimenting. And this piece behind me is one of the ones that I did. It's called Awakening Dream. It is about our consciousness awakening around us while we're still asleep, kind of flowing through our life. Right? So all these colors represent the possibility of manifesting the reality. And those eyes above me represent a consciousness that is already woken up. And it's asking us to wake up. Very timely for today, right?
For sure. Wow, beautiful.
Yes. Wow, beautiful.
Fernando, I guess, tell me what it's like to be a consciousness scientist, because I think consciousness, spirituality, and our evolution is ever more apparent on the planet, and we can bring in exopolitics as well. I think it's all in a convergence at the moment. This is all happening all together. How important is it to be exploring consciousness through science? A lot of people go with it from a new agey point of view, and I don't mean new agey in a derogatory sense. I really don't. I just mean I know a lot of people talk about conscious spirituality, but tell me about the consciousness science that you're involved in and kind of bring that in and how important that is.
You mean new agey and all those pot-smoking hippies that like to hang out around sacred geometry and that kind of thing? The namastes? Well, for me, science has an entire bandwidth, an entire spectrum of knowledge. And some of that knowledge has to do with things that you can measure and see, the empirical side of things. And that group that studies traditional physics, traditional engineering, the mathematics for today's world, that's only a very limited bandwidth. And I see consciousness that as the missing forces of nature, like we have gravity and electromagnetic and strong and weak force, we also have consciousness as a force of physics. And I'm borrowing language from one of my mentors. His name is Cryon, who does channeled material, and explains that God is the ultimate physicist. So what if beyond gravity and magnetism, there are forces that deal with complete awareness, and they have rules and mathematics to them. So within this is the ability to go from a thought into manifested matter here in 3D. Within understanding the science of consciousness is the ability to heal this body and transform it into something that hasn't been seen before on Earth. What if understanding consciousness as a science has to do with having an open channel of communication with our star families, the places where we came from? All of this is about stepping into the truth that nothing in current science explains reality. As soon as you stand outside and look up into the sky, you're looking at infinity. And there's nothing in science today that explains what infinity is. Consciousness is that bridge to connect us a little bit more, to tell us what the heck is it that we are experiencing right now.
Wow. I think for me, when you look at the Solvay conference in the late 1920s, where all the quantum physicists got together and formed the science of quantum physics, they got the engineering, the calculations all down, and then they realized the big epiphany that it's coming back to philosophy. And I think quantum physics eventually brought us back to the philosophy of it all. And I think we've been slowly marching in the last 80 to 100 years into this field of philosophy versus science, and it's now amalgamated into one. Are we in the age of the philosophers now, where we're coming back to bringing all subjects together, the age of the polymath? Is that where we're heading? Is that where we need to go?
Yes, the answer is very much yes, because when we realize that half of science today and half of what we call spirituality, religion, and a major portion of everything that we experience in school and in business, all of that also has a component of secrecy and control that is dark. That means that how can you go into studying reality when you are placed with half an eye open? We dumb down your senses. We cauterize our ability to connect with our source, our spirit. All of that is part of science today. Science to me is a religion that is closely guarded, just like Christianity and Islam and everybody else. And the priests of today's science don't want to deal with our awakening to consciousness. The connection to where we came from and the stars, those are the closely guarded secrets that are reserved for the elites of that system. And it is a priesthood, and it is dark. So when people talk to me about white magic or black magic or Wiccan science or an understanding from pagan know-how, I start tunneling through that, we're living at 200 years of knowledge right now versus billions of years of human evolution. So yes, right now is the revealing of bigger truths. Does this vocabulary get you excited,
It
James?
resonates with me. It resonates with my heart, brother. I really do, and I love what.
And the reason why I bring up paganism and some of the things that we consider occult knowledge, occult, all that means is that it's hidden. But what if humanity had a direct connection to natural law and natural science that is about here in the heart versus here in the head? So when I hear the term pseudoscience, or that is as some kind of esoteric, most people use those as insults. They use them as barriers. It's their defense mechanism, right?
Wow.
to me, that's saying, you know what? I'm going to put on my horse blinders. I don't want to know how the world really works. I don't care about nature and the elements. Forget Gaia. All I want to know is how I can create nuclear bombs to explode things, and how can I create more little boxes that I can hold in my hand without seeing the truth of who and what we are.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to let Heather jump in before I take my next question.
And Fernando, you're involved in so many interesting things. And one of the things that really intrigued me is your idea of an echo community, or the vaccination. Because I myself have always aspired to creating some kind of healing center that served different communities in different areas. So could you explain to us a little bit about your concept of the echo community?
Thank you, Heather. This is such a beautiful opener to this entire theme that we're doing right now. We all remember 2012, December 21st, the big fat date from the Mayan calendar, as one of those cutoffs to the darkness, and we stepping into the light. And I was one of those individuals that wanted to wake up and see in the physical signs that 2012 was a real transformation. For whatever reason, higher order realities, we didn't get to see the physics or the reality of 2012 in front of us. That's when I made the decision that I have to take all of my spiritual work, my interpersonal development, all of that that's happening in here, and take it out. It is up to us to build the new cities and the new reality and the new financial system, and to clean up our house of the cockroaches and rats that are running this planet. In 2012, for me, was the visualization of creating something here on Earth. So I asked a simple question. Could I create a house to transport me and my family, like a ship, from one stage of humanity into a new future state of humanity where we're living in peace, when we've made sustainability a priority globally? And that journey may be 5 years, it may be 10 years, I don't know how long it's going to take. It might be another lifetime. But I asked myself, what kind of transformation would I like to go through in this ship, in this house? Could I design a house to rejuvenate my body? For every 24 hours I spend inside this house, could I have my telomeres in my cells elongated? Could my DNA be broadcasting a new message to my body about how I relate to the world? Could I start de-aging? And within this, could I live in a community that has its own food, water, and energy, and healing technology? And what if the community was a laboratory to experiment with inner space, not outer space, not the internet, the internet? So the whole concept of an eco city has been evolved into regenerative architecture. Take all of that knowledge from all of these beautiful individuals who do healing and free energy and work on structuring water, can communicate with elements, and take that knowledge and make compassion the only reason we're building this entire city. Imagine architecture based on compassionate building techniques. We would be considering how to build houses that opened up our sensuality as a couple, so couples stay together longer, that it's more exciting to be in love. Houses that children suddenly activate levels of creativity, where your mental telepathy, your mental telekinesis, your ability to bend reality is seamless. Could we live in a house that is an instrument like a telescope and allows us to augment what's already in our bodies, to deprogram all that garbage from this reality? Wouldn't that be a place you want to see what it's like?
Definitely. It reminds me of the concept, that's part of my spirituality, that your house should be your temple. And, it harkens back to ancient civilizations, et cetera, where the temple was a place where you go and, a space to get away to, but bringing that into your home, it seems so important. And one of the interesting things I noticed in one of your videos was it looked like the shape of one of the houses incorporated a 12-pointed star. Is that correct? Because 12 is so important in esoteric tradition, isn't it?
It is in every scripture, from Christian to Islam to all the way back to Thoth and the Egyptians and further back. I hold in my hand a 3D printed version of the Vossahedron, which is a new kind of geometry. The footprint, as you've mentioned, Heather, is a 12-pointed star that fits perfectly on the flower of life. This is the perfect proportions of the body, the same proportions of your fingers and your hand that builds the Vitruvius man. And the idea here is to take whatever knowledge we have been able to absorb from our entire spiritual awakening and put it to work in conscious action. So this Vossahedron is designed as a fractal. The footprint, these triangles, the relationship between this triangle and this triangle, this is a fractal of this one. And the entire footprint is repeated one more time in the ceiling. That is a fractal, another copy of the main footprint. And there's a skylight that goes in the center here. And in that link that we're sharing with the show for the Center of Mass Creation, you'll be able to see the design. What if we could live in a house that was an instrument tuned at different frequencies? So your bathroom is tuned to a frequency to rejuvenate you while you're taking a bath. And your bedroom is tuned to a frequency to increase lucid dreaming. And your kitchen, which is another part of this crystal, is also designed to put a DNA message into your food and into your water that talks to this body. What if that was built into the house? So when people ask me, well, are your houses to specification for building codes? I'm like, building codes don't even talk about what we're talking about. If you want to talk about performance, this structure is designed to handle a 200-mile-an-hour Category 5 hurricane. It's designed to handle an 8.0 earthquake because of the way it bends. You know, when I try to twist this, you can feel all the angles working to support each other. This structure is designed to divide the sun into sections and fractalize the heat so it never reaches the inside. You can take a hot Santa Ana wind from an El Nino current and it'll come into these wedges, it'll form little vortices, and the house has a force field around it. It is also an orgone collection device. So your body, while you're standing in here, and your light body, your Merkaba, also has a temple. You don't get heart signals going into this house. You don't get the cell phone interruption, the brainwave programming. All of the toxic frequencies are grounded. Anyway, that's just a few ideas I'm sharing. This is how we need to design our new reality.
As an engineer, I'm fascinated, Vossa. That's got. Give me another look at that. Can I see inside again, just for the audience? Just hold the inside of that. So there's an ever decreasing fractal going. Oh wow, I see it now. That's amazing.
The shape itself, a person would be standing about this
high.
tall
Yeah.
by this dome,
Wow.
and its design is something we can build within a week with 3D print technology that prints real houses to scale.
Got you.
We're building one here in Mexico.
Wow.
And what if this shape was a platform that can be modified for a healing studio, a senior center, a children's school, a house, a place to grow food, and it generates its own electricity. This is a Tesla Earth battery system that creates its own energy on the top. And there's no metal in the construction of your house. It's made out of earth. So all these breakthroughs took several years to integrate.
I just love it. I love it. It's a mixture of art, a mixture of engineering, sacred geometry, energy. It's got all the components that you're looking for.
Yes, and I'm showing a piece of quantum technology. What this means is that we listened to nature. I asked Spirit to guide me through this design, to lead me to a type of cactus here in the desert that has this fractal geometry, the barrel cactus. And when we create things from Spirit, that are communicated to us, if we were able to replicate that vision, it becomes what I call an engine of mass creation. These things can do 1,000 different functions at once because they are interdimensional. This thing, this house, when we build it, we're going to be studying it. How does this affect the rate of growth of our cells? How does this affect our sex life? How does living in the temple that creates a harmonic resonance inside all the time, how does that affect the way we deal with disease? How is living in sacred geometry open us up to self-realization? This is the language I'd like to inspire architects and engineers and city planners.
It's beautiful.
Fun, huh?
It's beautiful.
Really interesting.
I guess, let's draw back. I know you look at ancient history and wisdom as well. Is this where you draw some of the stuff, the sacred geometry of the ancients? Did these guys, these guys were obviously building beautiful pyramids and lovely temples and complexes. These guys, the flower of life, and for example, and these guys had sacred geometry in their mindset. Is this what sets us apart from our civilization today? We don't appreciate the sacred geometry. We don't appreciate it. Is that what you draw from the ancient wisdom? Is that the area?
The word sacred geometry throws a lot of people off. It's like implying, are there certain shapes that are more important than other shapes? And the answer is yes. Are there certain proportions that when you put those proportions together, like a pyramid, like the Platonic solids, that create an antenna that starts transmitting and receiving higher order or higher vibration wisdom? The answer is yes. Because with experiments, you can put a plant inside a little pyramid frame, and that plant will grow better. You can put a glass of water inside a pyramid. Why does that happen is an interesting question. Well, there are people here on Earth that know exactly how that works. One of the shifts that occurs when you study ancient cultures, when you go visit cities, and I've seen ruins with the assistance of Michael Tellinger in South Africa that are 200,000 years old. What were we doing as humans that long ago? Well, it seems like we knew about crystals and resonance, and we knew how to extract energy from the earth. How is it when we build cities where we don't separate our spirituality and our engineering and our science and our love and compassion? It's all one, right? So just to give you an example, we have an oil-based paradigm right now. That's our tech. What if we shifted oil for teleportation? Well, the Mayans from 8,000 years and before were a teleportation society. So you go to their temples, not the newer ones, but the older ones. You will see that in the writings, in their codices, in their symbology, they could go to anywhere in the galaxy seamlessly, like us commuting, right? So distance wasn't a problem for them. A teleporting society leaves no cadavers. Go find some Mayan cemeteries for me, Go find some mass graves. Where's all the millions of Mayas that have been here? They're gone. So are many others. What if you went further back than 10,000 years? And you went to a crystal society like Atlantis? What kind of artifacts are we going to find? What kind of frequencies they did leave behind? Well, what if we went back to 36,000 years ago to where the Bosnia site is, the Bosnian pyramids? That was a different paradigm altogether. It looks like that was an ascension-based civilization that understood the frequencies of the ascension path of the body. Try having this conversation with a traditional archaeologist or an engineer. Sure. How do you shift that paradigm?
It's a difficult thing. I think you don't shift the paradigm. I think the paradigm comes and surpasses another paradigm, and they don't. Eventually, one just outgrows another. I don't even think. That's a good question, Fernando. A lot of people think we're going to convert archaeology or alternative researchers, alternative historians, alternative scientists, whatever you want to call it, free energy guys. They think that we're going to go and convert the mainstream guys, and I'm like going, where is your thinking? I don't get that. They're just going to become redundant, and they're going to be surpassed.
It's important to step out of the pyramid structure of somebody's in charge and everybody listens to that, into a holographic structure, a horizontal, where everybody has a piece of the whole. For example, when we think about the system of education and how we learn these things, who's in charge of what we think reality is, right? When we go to school, they don't talk about civilizations like Atlantis or Lemuria. They don't talk about the planet Lyra or Maldek, because those pieces of information contradict the agreed paradigm, right?
Sure.
But I believe right now we all are receiving upgrades from the sun and the galaxy. We all have the capacity to revisit our knowledge and challenge our biases. And I think that's going to be important if we're going to get through a new banking system for the planet, if we're going to penetrate having leaders on this planet that are benevolent, that are based on compassion and love. And I got to tell you, James, love and compassion are the most advanced technologies available to us in the third dimension. Not teleportation or time travel or matter replication. It is love and compassion. Those are the highest, broadest frequencies of energy that exist at the moment. And that, try wrapping a traditional scientist's mind that at the love and compassion level, one can travel to stars, can heal a body, can produce endless energy, and can tap into information that is not available to those who don't get that message. So isn't it time we start building telescopes with love and compassion frequencies and geometries for cities based on love and compassion for this body? That's all I'm sharing. That's what I'm saying.
Heather, do you want to jump in next before I go again?
Yeah, this resonates with me because, as I mentioned to you earlier, from my own personal spiritual path and experiences, I was trained in Glastonbury for 5 years as a priestess. And one of the important parts of my training was connecting to landscape and universal energies. And, it really opened the heart chakra, but it also brought a great deal of enlightenment and becoming on the path and feeling connected to the universe as well as all of humanity. If you could share a little bit about your own philosophies in terms of using landscape, these universal energies to connect and to activate our DNA, as you talk about, to become more enlightened. How can we do that in our daily practice?
Ascension is a very personal program, a path. That means there are over 7 billion ways to reach that enlightenment, and none of them agree with each other. I had an interesting experience in Glastonbury in February. I visited, and we stopped off in Avery, where they have the beautiful stones there too, before you go to Stonehenge, and finally to Glastonbury. When we finally got to Glastonbury, we got there during closing time, right around 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So I didn't get a chance to go to all the beautiful bookstores and go to the shops. And it was a little bit frustrating because, as soon as I got to a shop, boom, they put up the sign, sorry, mate, it's over.
Right.
And I was thinking, okay, this is interesting. Spirit, tell me, what is this about? I've traveled how many thousand miles to get to England, and my one chance to come to what I consider one of the centers of spirituality, Avalon, it's frickin' closed, right? The theme park was like Wally World and vacation. But something interesting occurred. Immediately the answer came by. And he said, and the message was that this world is closed to you, Fernando, because you are the new spirituality. You don't need to go into the shops to find that we have Egyptian artifacts here. We have spirituality in Glastonbury from so many different traditions. Because when you look through the windows, you see books and gifts and aromatherapy and geometry, right? But the message that came through was this was appropriate 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago for those cultures. The Ayurveda in India, the Egyptian philosophies of Ra and Thoth, that was for them. We're being asked right now to invent today's spirituality, today's technology. We're not necessarily going to do the massage, yoga, aroma, incense crystals thing anymore. You know why? Because we've integrated that into ourselves now. We are the incense. We are the crystals. We are the incantations. We are the ceremony. Our bodies are, and I'm getting chills as I'm sharing this with you. We are projecting so much gobsmacking light right now. So Heather, we had a little technical interruption speaking of energy, but how do you feel about us crafting the new spirituality?
Well, it gives us a lot of hope, doesn't it, to look forward to the future. And I know that in terms of my own spiritual path, for years I had visions of the future and this path that I needed to follow. And finally now within the past year, I feel like things are manifesting of what I saw years ago in the 90s, which has taken so long. So it's given me a lot of hope because I was almost at the point of giving up. You know, when you've seen these things so long and you believed in it so long, and now finally things are manifesting, I think, in a more positive direction. So it's good to hear that from you, that you have that sense also of moving forward, you know, as individuals, but also collectively as a world. Because when we watch the news, we hear all kinds of disinformation, and the things that we see out there are just so horrific that it can really bog us down, can it? And
oh yeah, I asked recently, through this last couple years of my work, what is possible right now? And of course, the obvious answer is always anything is possible. No. The question is, what is possible in the context of what the world is going through at this very moment? And what kind of tools could each one of us pick up right now to manifest this new reality, right? And go from the meditative, contemplative self-realization process and step into the active, conscious action part of things. This, to me, is my meditation. This is my conscious action of transferring what's in here and make it real. Because I feel that Spirit is asking us to manifest against all odds. I'm going to put these walls of limitation, and if you could traverse them or go around them or make them disappear, the being that does that is a being that has learned the lessons of humility and compassion, because the energy to transmute alchemically the darkness involves that humility and that compassion. And if we could go through the eye of the needle right now, you know, because billions of people right now are screaming for a new reality. We've never seen this, right? And you can't have a motion of electrons or people without some energy happening. Are you guys feeling a build-up right now of voices screaming?
Yes, definitely. And, you know, one of the things that's interesting that you can learn about from ancient mythology as well is, you know, you have the myth of Caradwyn within the Welsh goddess tradition of you have to reach the bottom of the cauldron, the very depths of darkness, before you can ascend again and go through a rebirth. And I think it's like this last huge great push for humanity before there's this huge rebirth. But in order to do that, you have to kind of be down in the muck and the darkness, and to the point of losing faith and hope, and come out to the other side, because it is like a greatest test and challenge. It's like when you're talking about going to Glastonbury. Glastonbury always challenges everyone that way, in terms of there's some kind of thing that doesn't go quite right when you first go, and it challenges you and makes you rethink your purpose as to why you're there.
Wow, I've never heard that actually is a phenomenon.
Yeah, it is. It's really quite common. The first time that I went to Glastonbury to do my priestess training, I was supposed to stay at this particular inn, and they lost my reservation. And I was really freaked out because I was new to living in England, and I was like, where am I going to go? Here I am alone. My ex had just left me there. And I was like, what am I going to do? But it was the challenge of, you're there, you made it. It doesn't matter where you stay for the night. It'll be taken care of. But it's that you're there to experience the energies. It's not the practicalities of, you know, your chakras that are being, your lower chakras that are being challenged with your fears.
What I found interesting there, along with what you're saying, is that I asked myself, where's the original spirituality or knowledge of Glastonbury, right? Because, as you know, a lot of the tourist shops sell a mix of artifacts from all over the place, all over the world, right? And,
Right.
and you think, okay, where is the totems, the amulets, or the symbols that are originally from here? And the answer that's come when I was asking that question, there is no such thing. It's all everywhere, because for me to address what people consider spirituality, what symbols come to mind? Well, they have the namaste, a lotus position, all the different things that we have a bias to what is spiritual, right?
Right.
But we don't recognize that there are people right now working behind the scenes in black projects, in liberating the political system of the world. They're behind a desk. They have nothing that looks New Age in front of them, and they are powerful masters of light doing their work, right?
Right, exactly.
The individuals that we can empower right now are the secret agents of the light that have been behind the scenes. And I think we're going to see them more and more. Instead of pointing our questions to a religion or a philosophy, we can start directing our energy to empower the doers of the world right now. Where is this free energy going to go? Where are we going to deploy free healing at the moment? The questions that I occupy in my mind are, what are we going to do after we have free energy? After we have healing? That's where I concentrate most of my time. This stuff I create is about that transition. Most people think we're going to be bored if we live in a clean, liberated planet. How do you guys feel about that?
No, I would not be bored, definitely. I'd feel like all these extraneous things would be taken away so that I could focus on what I really wanted to do and sharing that with other people.
I want to throw something out to the audience. And how's our audio? We're still good?
We're still good, yeah. Things are going great now.
Let us know if you get reverb. I'm going to ask everybody who's listening to this in the now, which that will also be in the future where people are going back to this recording. Take a deep breath for a moment and feel inside you the resonance of a planet in peace. Visualize the entire world has put its arms down. It's not a question of whether it can happen. It is an exercise to believe in the idea of it. A planet in peace is a planet that we have decided that it is unthinkable to kill another human being. It is unthinkable to become so corrupt to sell out our own race. We wouldn't do that in this new paradigm. And the only thing we need to do right now is to believe that this can be real. It's in the possibilities, right? Because I ask people, now we're stepping out of this meditation. It was just a quick moment. When you ask somebody, do you believe in a planet in peace? Do you believe in a planet with no money? Most people's defense mechanism kicks in, right? And they start saying, no, we need money for trade, and it's a necessary tool, and no, we're always going to have armies, and people argue that we're corrupt, and humans are violent in their nature. But none of that is the question. The question is, do we just believe it for a moment, right here, right? Because as soon as you contemplate that for a second and dream about it for just a moment, that sets that spark of energy. Like I said, love and compassion get threaded together in an electromagnetic field through all the cells in your brain. And they create a resonant structure that gets projected out of your body. One more person on Earth believes in a peaceful planet. That changes things, right? Right. That's how I do everything when it comes to thinking about free energy technology, or healing, or water, or food, or building eco cities. It's real in my head. I don't even doubt it for a second. How do you guys feel about getting more people to express themselves from a point of knowing?
Yeah, it's definitely something that's positive and to look forward to.
Yeah, I love the idea of it's about the mindset. You need to get people into the mindset, and if that's from exploring creativity, exploring nature and the biomimicry, and I think you're right. I think you've got to get people into the mindset, and if you've got to help them visualize it and see the vision, it's pointless one person going to go out and try to change the world. You can do it by thought experiments. You can do it by explaining the creativity process. You can do it many ways. And I, I just got to take a moment to mention for the audience, if people want to check out the wonderful structures that you've created in the biomimicry, go to Center of Mass Creation on Facebook, and you'll see the wonderful images that and the model of that we've just been talking about for the biomimicry dwelling that you've just shown with the fractals and stuff. It's awesome that you've done this. It's clever.
The audience a little bit about what the Center of Mass Creation is. About a decade ago, I started asking reality to identify an organization, like a company or a country or something like that, that would be amazing to align myself with. Who could take me under their wing? Some kind of laboratory or some type of school that would completely accelerate these tools, these solutions. It turns out I couldn't find one. Was it Google? Was it going to be Microsoft? I work for Microsoft. I tell you, they don't have the consciousness to fix this planet, to heal it. I worked for Sony. They don't, they make consumer products, and to share with them at a board meeting, which I did several times, to create healing consumer products that when you pick them up, they're tapped into your body. Imagine the distance between the stockholders and the release of the latest television compared to the release of technology that is Atlantean or Agarthan or Pleiadian, right? So when having this language, I decided to invent my own organization, and I called it the Center of Mass Creation. And it is 12 laboratories, all integrated, and it's all sacred geometry. Each laboratory was focused on one area of study. So imagine, Heather, taking all of the tools that you use right now and turn them into separate laboratories, like crystal, water, magnetics, thought, a healing laboratory, a laboratory for biomimicry, which is for nature. And then we use this as a school. And it's a living community where children come and learn from all these. And we have computers that run on water. I learned how to compute with water. And we have computers that run on crystals. And I have a huge collection of crystals that we use to project holographic images. Most people don't know how to read crystals with a laser. And you can bring out information that is millions and billions of years old. So all of this had to do with creating places that accelerate creativity and explode it. That is the bomb that we explode, creativity. And you know what? This is what most people are afraid of. Creativity unleashed. What if everybody could be as creative as they could be, as they were born to be? What if we healed that fear and created things and schools and mechanisms for people to just go crazy with creativity, connect with God, learn how to levitate, heal your body, astral travel, replicate matter, connect with other planets, go interdimensionally. What if we had no limit to creativity in schools? What would happen? How does this feel for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually send my son to a Waldorf school because there's an emphasis on the creativity. Wow. So it fits exactly with my personal philosophies, because I didn't want him to go to a school where they'd taken away the music and the art and the play outside. And, he has a lot of nature space outside where they just let them go out and play in nature. And he plays with bugs and explores all kinds of interesting things every day. So I totally resonate with what you're saying. One of the interesting things, too, about the 12 number that keeps coming up in the conception of your work, I had an interesting synchronicity when in the 90s, I had this vision of 12 monks that were in a circle. And it was in this stone room, which looked like the monk's kitchen in Glastonbury. And it was myself and what turned out to be my husband later on, who is Gary Osborn, in the center holding this chalice. And it was like a wedding ceremony. So it was like all of these different things through the years. I tracked this, like, what is the meaning of this 12 and what does this symbolize? And I learned that, this 12 was sacred throughout so many different cultures and time periods and represents these different segments of ourselves, as you're talking about, these different aspects that are integral and then all come together in the center in unity. So I just find it really fascinating the way you've incorporated that geometry into this.
Almost forgot to unmute myself. Heather, you've touched upon something very important right now. If we put in front of children these paradigms, they will achieve them. And it doesn't matter how exotic or advanced we think the paradigm is. And I'll give you an example of tying in consciousness studies with traditional science in the context of creativity. I read some material on Pleiadian life on different planets in the Pleiades. And one of the techniques that they use in some schools in a particular planet is to teach children mental telekinesis, how to move things with their mind. Because just like we learn the skills of just talking and communicating, other star beings have to learn how to adapt to a changing physics all the time. They can create matter with their hands because they connected their brain to that, right? So one could ask, well, how do I teach my son or how to do this? Well, one of the ways they do is with mercury, the kind that you find in a thermometer. They put mercury in little containers, like little dishes, and you start learning how to first vibrate that mercury, just get a vibration on the surface. And eventually you're shown shapes, and you need to be able to create that shape out of mercury, like a cube or a little pyramid or a sphere. And then you learn how to levitate your mercury creations. That's one of the training mechanisms, because mercury is supposed to have a close connection energetically to what the signal, the magnetic signal that our brain puts out. So within a school context, we've had prototype programs where we practice mental telepathy with children, telekinesis, astral travel, remote viewing, with art, with paints and crayons and so forth, mixing in the exercises of reading each other's mind. And I got to tell you, Heather, after some practice, we were getting 60 and 70% hit rates. That means 3 out of 4 times the kids were getting it. That to me was phenomenal to see that in live, in action. We have that on video too.
Wow, that's amazing.
So what do you think is possible with children that are being born right now? Have you seen the difference in kids?
Yes, I have. Actually, I teach college / university as my day job. But I've also worked with younger children also, particularly when I was in London. I worked with younger children at an academy and revamped the literacy program there. So I have worked with children of all ages up through young adults of today. And students older than me. So I do see differences. With my own son and some other children I've encountered, there's more of a psychic awareness. There's a sense of past lives that it took me years to get to that point of understanding about my own past lives. But with my son, it was like this natural thing, that he tapped into right away and spoke about, and he would have a sense of things before they would happen. So I see this natural ability, and within my own environment, in my home, I try to hone that and develop it. And I'm hopeful that more people will take that path, honoring their creativity, their connection to nature, and all of these things that have been removed from our society by an emphasis on a left brain culture rather than all these right brain processes that were so important once before and have been basically beaten out of us.
You're right. And when we start looking at these different paradigms, new kinds of questions come up. That means when children and even college students are exposed to what we consider hidden knowledge, the esoteric paradigms, and the whole namaste thing, what if we had some of those subjects talked about in school? And I'll give you one as an example. There are problems that can't be solved with the left or the right brain. They're whole brain problems of consciousness. Like, when you ask a question, who am I? What am I? When am I? Those simple questions, those can't be solved with left brain, right brain thought, because you go into this infinite loop that you get stuck on. When you ask a Buddhist, who are you? Or who am I? They'll answer, who's asking the question, right? Let's just see who we're talking about here. Is it your physical ego, or is it your higher self? Or are you coming from God, the Godhead, right?
Right.
Everything in school that we learn, how to write, how to do math, how to solve problems, all of that is the minute edge of spiritual practice. In school when we learn about geometry, right? And we learn about this crazy cat named Pythagoras. Pythagoras was a mystic, and he had a mystery school. And his students and their philosophies is that the essence of reality can be expressed in shape. And to them, that was God. The language of geometry was God's language. But when I was learning geometry in school, they mentioned Pythagoras just because of the triangle. But I asked the teacher, I want to know more about this crazy character, right? And they were like, oh, no, you don't want to go in that direction. It's a cult, and there's strangeness there, and they're afraid, right? Well, I didn't get to learn about Pythagoras till in my 40s, about that mystery school. So what do you think about bringing some of these subjects to a university and have open discussions about them?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to create my own healing center, to focus on that, to bring a lot of these things to the fore, because in university now, it's very much structured in terms of the classes and the expectations to get people ready for their careers. It's very job-centered. And for myself, I have to find fulfillment through my writing and research and publishing on these things that are esoteric subjects that are not accepted within the academy. I have to do that on my own, and my husband is also an author within this field. So this is this whole other side of myself that I want to bring to the fore more and more. And, I see that the possibilities opening up in my own life, and that within society, we're becoming more open to these things than we were, 15, 20 years ago, et cetera. So definitely I see what you're saying, that we need to come into balance. And there's this, what my husband calls the neutral point, the center in between, where we have to come to that space of unity and balance again, instead of in the world of extremes.
Yes. One of the things I don't have a resolution for is, what do you do with awakened children? For example, when I was in elementary school, I had my first out-of-body experience near death at age 8. And I won't tell the entire story because it's long, but I was frozen in Alaska, walking in the woods, getting lost. My family moved from Mexico to Alaska, and that's where we grew up. And in this field at night, in the snow, is when I left my body and went traveling through the sun. And we went to the center of the galaxy, and I got to see where stars come from, and entire galaxies are born. And when I woke up after this losing about 6 or 8 hours of sleep or time in the middle of the forest, I was by my house. And I am now connected since then to this source of wisdom that is would be my higher self, whatever. But we have an educational system that takes the most creative students and punishes them. And you cannot go faster than the dumbest kid in the whole class. That doesn't make sense to me. And maybe I'm using crude vocabulary to describe a real problem. What happens when certain children, and most teachers come across these kids once or twice in a career, but we're going to see them more and more. Kids that have vocabulary to describe the forces of physics. They know about space. They know about extraterrestrials and past lives, right? And what if reality or the universe or God is manifesting a new DNA strain here on Earth, an extended, augmented range of capabilities? Because this is what is needed to clean up our contaminated planet. This is what is needed to bring about peace. Because you cannot recruit these children to be part of an army anymore. Try talk to a 4-year-old right now, a 5-year-old. You won't be able to get them into a corporation to produce Monsanto garbage. They will not participate. You cannot offer them $10 million or $100 million. The money doesn't matter to these children. And it goes completely against our intuition, our own bias. We think we need to shut them down with Ritalin, and we need to put them into programs to desynthesize them from their creativity, right? Well, what's happening now is that some teachers get it. They get that this is the new level of humanity that's going to teach us about how to do it. Are you feeling more of this, James, too?
Oh, wow. I'm loving it, bro. I'm loving it. And we're at the top of the hour, Fernando. I want to save time. It's so fascinating listening to you. I'm just enthralled. I'm enthralled all the way. You've got a wonderful energy and a wonderful spirit. It's great, Fernando, to talk to you today. I do want to save time to talk about sonic Reiki technology. I know you've provided me with some material. I'm going to put it in the YouTube description for people that are following this on the rerun. But tell us a little bit about sonic Reiki technology, basically what it is, and then Dave can also refer to it in the YouTube description when it goes on YouTube.
Okay. Some time ago, about 5 years ago, I decided to prototype a range of several technologies that have come through me. They're all crystal-based healing technologies. And I want to share with the audience that the common core of free energy, living water, healing the body, and nutritious food, and replicating matter, and teleportation, and time control are all the same thing, the same energy, the same set of vibrations. So I studied healing from several points of view. Body workers that did different practices, from craniosacral to reflexology to massage to Reiki energy with your hands to psychic surgery, and maybe about 100 modalities over almost a decade. I even became a level 2 Reiki practitioner just to study it. And within there, identify the different elements of healing, which are the same ones I mentioned: crystal energy, water, light, geometry, intention from your mind, and magnetics. Those are the 7 modalities of healing. And I wanted to create an experience as an artist that turned healing into an art performance. When I watch somebody on a massage table and I see the practitioner move their hands, I'm visualizing energy and fields. And when I put my hands on it, I can feel it. I can feel the edges of that energy. I wanted to illustrate that. What does it look like when our Merkaba and our light body is dancing? It loves to be watched. Our body loves color and sound. Not just this physical body, but our light body, right? So I took a projector, a laser projector, and projected directly on people's bodies the fractal energy that was generated by a piece of software when the software listens to your voice. So I record people laying down on the massage table, and I ask them to visualize their body standing in front of them, and they can talk to it. Their perfect, healed body. You might call it your vampire body, your young, sexy, eternal self. What would you say to your body? Would you take a minute? I say to these people, and I will record you. And I gotta tell you, I've heard things that brought me to tears in joy, that people recognize that they could actually talk to their body and give it specific instructions of what you want to heal or transform. Because all of your cells are listening. It's a performance for your cells. And you get chills all over your body. So then I take that recording of them talking to their body, and I put it through my laptop, through a small amplifier, and it goes into a magnetic device that fits in your hand. It looks like a metal cylinder that is a coil, a magnetic coil. And on top of it, I put a crystal. And that crystal is polished like a disc. And it has a hole in the center, so it's actually a torus. So I have a crystal torus, a jade torus, an amethyst, and all these different types of that I change out like lenses in a camera. So I can put the jade or the rose quartz, and then I put essential oils on top of that. And the essential oil reacts to the sound coming through the speaker, through the crystal, and the crystal resonates the piezoelectric effect and releases photons from the essential oil, and I put that right next to your body. I put it right next to you. And your body starts resonating at the frequency of your voice that's talking to you, saying, I love you, heal me, I forgive you. And I play music and tones through the entire system. And the projector is graphics on your body generated by the sound. So it's a closed loop. It's like your entire body is generating energy waves. And people start crying, or they go into a deep theta state. Some people have told me they went out of body with my sonic Reiki system. So at the same time, I take a glass of water and I charge it. I put the crystal magnetic device next to the water, and then I project through the water the geometry from the projector. And the water starts vibrating, and it creates cymatic patterns in the glass. And then I project in, with my mind, the intention of healing, the pure love and benevolence for this person. And then they drink that water. So this is Dr. Emoto on steroids, you know? How does all of this sound, by the way?
Wowzer. You know, I checked it. I checked out the Sonic Reiki videos today. I'm fascinated by it. It looks really, really, really awesome. It really does. Fernando, we're at the top of the hour and we're out of time. I guess the main page to give out is the Center of Mass Creation on Facebook if people want to check you out, Fernando. Fernando, I really enjoyed talking to you tonight. And Heather, thank you.
I do have a closing message.
Thank you.
Please give us the closing message.
First is a promotion. I'm going to be live in Los Angeles, September 23rd through the 27th at the 5D Alchemy event. So you can go to 5D events.com. All right. Take a deep breath. I'm going to share a mantra with our audience to align who and what you are. I am the center of mass creation. I am an engine of mass creation. I am the center of mass creation. I'm an engine of mass creation. I'm the center of mass creation. I'm an engine of mass creation. I am the center of mass creation. Namaste.
Wow, brother. Well, we're going to leave it at that. I thank you for your time today, guys.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Great. It was wonderful. Thank you, Fernando.